Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie. For today's video, I'm going to be going through all the books that I read in the month of January. First, I'm going to go through a few of the statistics. So I ended up reading 12 books and I had one DNF. Technically, I read 11, but I'm counting my DNFs as read, so I read 12 books. And from those 12 books, I read 3,851 pages in total. 6 of the 12 books that I read were physical, 3 of them were ebook, and 3 of them I did audiobooks. Overall, I read 4 different genres, and I only had one 5-star this month. And then the amount of hours I listened to was 28 hours. And then my average rating for this month was 3.98 stars. So those were all the stats for this month, and now let's go through the books and I'll give you my thoughts on all of them. So the very first book that I read in 2025 was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I thought for some reason I wasn't going to like it that much, but I ended up loving it. So basically this is a small town romance. Our female main character, Aurora, she basically goes back to her hometown in Colorado and she decides to rent out this garage apartment that this teenager put up for rent online, and the teenager's dad finds out about it. Basically, he sets up a deal with her and it's a very slow burn romance. I just loved the tension and the banter between these two characters and I really enjoyed the story a lot. Then on my Kindle, I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is a thriller. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it to an extent, but I feel like it was very predictable. So the basic premise of this book is that this couple wants to rekindle their relationship. They're kind of broken and they decide to go on a vacation sort of, and the wife basically decides to rent out this cathedral and they are snowed in once they get there, and things get really weird. That's all I'm gonna say about this book. I'm kind of picky with thrillers and what I like in thrillers. I did read this in 2-3 days. I thought it was entertaining, but like I said, I thought it was very predictable, but I would still recommend it. Then I read Crossroads by Devney Perry. This is also a small town romance. This is basically about a woman and she decides to buy this ranch that she would always go to when she was younger. And the family who owns this ranch, the dad does not tell his sons that he made this decision, and so there's this tension between this one son and the female main character, and it's basically an enemies to lovers romance. I thought it was okay. This wasn't my favorite of Devney Perry's books. I ended up giving it 2.75 stars. So I'm kind of between maybe and no on recommending this book. Then I read the 4th book of the Zodiac Academy series. This one is Shadow Princess. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. If you don't know what this is about, this is a fantasy romance series about these 2 girls, and they discover that they are lost fae princesses of this world called Solaria. Basically, they are found by this professor of the Zodiac Academy, and they go with him to this world and they attend the academy, and there are 4 male heirs who attend this academy who are elite and very rich fae, and this is basically a bully romance and a lot of drama goes down, and I am eating the series up. I think it's so good and I cannot recommend the series enough. Then I read the little novella Origins of an Academy Bully in the Zodiac Academy series. This technically comes before book 1 because the events in this book happen before the events of The Awakening, which is the first book. I read this after Shadow Princess. You could read it after book 3, which is The Reckoning. This isn't really necessary to read, but this is just a backstory of Darius and Orion's point of view, and I really liked it a lot. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I would recommend reading this after reading books 1, 2, and 3, or else you'll get spoiled. And then I read book 5, which is Cursed Fates. I don't know why I did that to myself, reading books 4 and 5 back to back, because this was an emotional roller coaster. Like, the events that happen in this book had me spiraling, but I was eating this book up, and the ending had me in shambles. I was like, what the heck just happened? But yeah, like I said, I highly recommend the series. And while I was reading those books in the Zodiac Academy, I listened to a few audiobooks. The first one was Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This is the second book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. I ended up giving it 4.25 stars, but now that I think about it, I think I would rate it like a 3.75. It just wasn't my favorite. I really liked the first one a lot, which is Butcher and Blackbird. And I honestly do not remember much that happens in this book. So I couldn't really tell you what it's about. I will say that it is a mafia romance, and it also had like some rom-com elements to it because it was very funny too. But I honestly don't think I would recommend this book. And then the other audiobook I listened to was The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. This book really solidified my fears of online dating and just dating in general, because you have no idea who you're meeting and who you're like whatever. I ended up rating it 3.75 stars. This was one of my least favorite books by Frida, just because I think there are other books by her that are better than this one. But this is about a woman who decides to go on this date, and this guy is like really weird. He tries to attack her at the beginning, and then there's this other guy that she sees, and he witnesses what is happening to her and this guy, and basically she's like, that guy's hot, I want to get to know him. And this is dual POV, it's dual timeline as well, so it switches between present time with the female main character and the past, which is with the male main character. The ending of this kind of felt a bit rushed, and it was very underwhelming, so I honestly wouldn't really recommend this book. Then I read Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. This is a historical fiction about these 2 daughters who don't have a great relationship with their mother, and they want to rekindle that relationship. And so when their father dies, these 2 sisters are taking care of their mom, and before their dad passed away, he wanted his wife to make a promise to their daughters to tell her story. And so basically we see what the mom's story is and why she is the way she is, and it's very emotional, and the story that she is telling takes place during World War II in Russia. And honestly, this wasn't my favorite, but I still really enjoyed it. I cried a lot at the end, and I ended up rating it 3.75 stars. And then while I was reading Winter Garden, I was listening to She's Not Sorry by Mary Kubica, and this was the audiobook that I ended up DNFing. And the reason why is because there were so many things happening at once. I was confused on what the plot was supposed to be. Basically, right at the beginning, we see that this woman who works as a nurse in a hospital, her daughter gets kidnapped while she's at the store. And then we go back in time, and I was very confused when I was reading the reviews, because I did not know while I was listening to this that it was a dual timeline. And so that's why I DNF'd it. It just could not hold my attention any longer, and I just could not stand the characters in this book. Then I read another Kristen Hanna book, which was The Woman. This is about the women who served as nurses in the Vietnam War and what they went through afterwards when they came back from the war. This book made me so incredibly angry seeing what these women had to go through. It's just very upsetting, but it was very eye-opening, and I learned so much about the Vietnam War while reading this book, and I cried so much during this book. This is very fast-paced. It gets right into the book. It's not as slow as Winter Garden or The Nightingale, but I could not stop reading this book, and I highly, highly recommend this. If you want to get into historical fiction, I think this book is the perfect place to start. And then I recently just finished Downpour by Maggie Gates, and I ended up rating this 3 stars. I thought the female main character in this book was so annoying and very insufferable, and I feel like there wasn't that much character development. But basically this is about a girl who is hired to take care of this man who is a wheelchair user. So it has a disability representation, which I really liked. And this is a small town romance with cowboys, which I also really like. And basically she just helps him around the house. He says that he doesn't need help, and he mentions that every time he's had someone hired to work for him, he always gets them fired. So I thought this girl was going to get fired like immediately and she would like do something else, but she stayed, and basically they have this romance. I thought it was cute, but I did not feel the chemistry at all. It just didn't really do it for me. I guess I would recommend this if you do want to get into small town romance. And so those are all of the books that I read in January. I really hope you liked this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.